Hey, what's up everyone? King of the Wall right here with some Fallout 76 content. Yes, it is not the beta, the official game has finally arrived. And I hope you have been enjoying it as much as I have so far, and while I'm going to be bringing you plenty of random and off-the-wall content in the coming days, I wanted to take a moment to address one of the more, I don't want to say concerning, but puzzling aspects of the game that's been implemented. Now, as you already know, based on the title of this video, I'm of course talking about the new wanted and bounty systems. Whereas in past Fallout games, you had karma, you could do things with certain factions that would make other factions hate you, etc. With this, it's kind of straightforward in that if you do a bad thing, people are gonna know and they're probably not gonna like you. And if you don't do bad things, most people will leave you alone. Unfortunately, it's rarely that straightforward, and I've noticed a few flaws with how it works and some areas that can actually be abused with it. So I want to talk about that. I want to go over how the bounty and wanted systems work in general, just to give you an overview so you know what to look out for, what to potentially avoid, and also what you can and should do should you pick up a bounty of your own. And then I want to go over some of the ways that I think Bethesda could improve upon the system. It makes sense given that this is Fallout's first foray into a multiplayer environment, but I don't think it's quite there, and the potential for abuse is already beginning to bubble up from what I've seen. Now, before I get too far into this and make it seem like I'm bashing Fallout 76 and saying that this is a huge flaw, this is not a huge problem with the game. Even with this, I have been enjoying it. And I think a lot, if not all of the other multiplayer aspects I've interacted with have, at the very least, worked well or as expected. The base building and settlement building has been a lot of fun for me with friends, and the trading aspect, while a little clunky at times, being able to either give things away for free or set your own price and barter can really work out well for both people, so that's all worked well. And of course, yeah, it's a Bethesda game. Bethesda and glitches, they go together like peanut butter and jelly. And yeah, Fallout 76 has a lot more jelly than you would normally expect, but most of the glitches I've come across, at least after the beta, they've mostly been visual and graphics related. The only time it's been a huge issue was when there was a scorched one that was totally invisible to me, but luckily I was with a friend and he could see him on his screen, so he took care of it, and that was the only major problem I've had. With that all out of the way, let's dive into the ways that you can become wanted and pick up a bounty. There are three main ways you can trigger this. The first and most obvious and prevalent one is attacking a player, they don't fight back, then you continue to attack them until they are dead. The key here is that they don't retaliate. If you shoot someone, and they start returning fire your way, you guys are in a PvP environment. You've agreed to the terms, you've signed up for this shit, you better be ready, and whoever wins, they are coming out clean. That's what you're seeing in this first clip here. I jumped into the official game for like just my second hour in, after playing the beta for quite a bit, and this level 6 guy just starts shooting at me. And at first I don't fight back, I thought it was a mistake, but then he takes another shot, and it's like, dude, I don't think you know what you're doing here. I was level 14 at the time, so him trying to fight me with his sort of beginner, maybe half-decent guns versus my much more advanced and high-end stuff, it's almost like a pretty good high school basketball player going up against your average NBA player. You might hit a few shots, but at the end of the day, your only chance of winning is if the other guy makes some huge mistakes and just gifts you the W. Needless to say, after being sufficiently annoyed by him, as well as being harassed by that invisible scorched one I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I took care of him pretty easily and came away with no bounty added to my name. So, as you could have guessed, killing an innocent person who's not trying to fight back is bad, and that'll give you a bounty. The other two ways you can get a bounty are also pretty self-explanatory and make a lot of sense. That would be what you're seeing me do in this clip here, which is stealing another person's inventory or destroying any of their settlement objects or workbenches or what have you. That will also give you a bounty. Now, what happens in this clip, I know it gives me a warning, but the fact that it wasn't marked as a player safe, it just said safe and I had to pick it, I thought it was just on the map and that notification was coming up because there was one near me. It's kind of on me, but I'll go a little more on that towards the end of the video. So that sums up the 3 main ways that you can pick up a bounty in Fallout 76. As far as what that means for you, there are a few things. Normally, if another player starts shooting at you, you take minimal damage until you start shooting back. Assuming the person you're shooting at isn't a super low level and they have even a few healing items, it's the equivalent of trying to kill a super mutant by throwing stones at him. You'll probably get there eventually, but it'll take a long time, and it's probably not worth all the resources you're gonna have to use up to make it happen. But, as you can see in the clip that I'm about to show you here, I'm just minding my own business, trading with the vendor, but I have a bounty on me already, and players can see that. So not only do I automatically appear as an enemy, but they deal full damage. They don't need to wait for me to start firing back in order to come real close to killing me. Fortunately, as soon as I realized that I was taking a lot of damage, I stopped my trading and took care of business, made sure that they realized that was a decision they would come to regret. The last consequence of having a bounty is the one you're probably already familiar with, which is that when players look at their map, you don't show up as that little white, unassuming circle, you show up in red, and they can know immediately that you have a bounty and track where you are, and it can be pretty easy to hunt you down if they so desire. So, that brings us to the big question of how do you get rid of a bounty once you have one? And unfortunately, and this is the part of it that I think is the most flawed, the only way to remove your bounty is upon death. You can't switch servers, you can't log out and come back an hour, a day, a week later. It will only go away once you have been killed and the bounty has been claimed. Of course, while being killed means the bounty finally goes away, it's not all good news, because dying in this game means you lose all of your junk. Now, in general, I've actually been a fan of this being the punishment for death in this game. You don't lose any of your weapons, your armor, your meds. It seems pretty fair, but the problem arises, like in this clip here, where I have a bounty, I've got a guy chasing me, I defeat him, take his junk, but now the problem is, this guy's got nothing to lose. If he spawns back right in my location, and I kill him again, nothing lost, except for the ammo spent trying to fight me for a second time, so why not keep going after me until he finally wins? And eventually he does get me, and this is the part that really pisses me off. Once he finally gets me on like the 3rd or 4th try, he gets my junk and leaves the server. So after being harassed for a good 10 minutes, he gets his revenge. Now I want a chance to fight back? Too late. He comes out as the final victor, and I have no recourse. And on that note, this is the part of the video where I give my suggestions on how we can fix or at least improve the current wanted and bounty systems. My first 2 recommendations relate to other ways that you could potentially get rid of a bounty other than just waiting to die after getting hunted down for the 100th time. The first is being able to pay it off with caps, whether you need to go to a vendor or trader in order to do that, or if you could just do it from the menu screen. Either way is fine with me. Maybe something like 10 times your bounty, so if you got a bounty at 10 caps, you can pay 100 caps to get rid of it. The other option would be setting an in-game timer related to how high your bounty is, so whether it's 15 minutes for every cap worth of a bounty you have of in-game time, whatever that may be, the idea that if you can survive long enough in the game, if you can be passive, avoid players, what have you, eventually it will go away. You don't need to die at some point to get rid of it. And as far as these 2, you don't need to do both of them. Either one would be fine. Just give me something, anything, where if I pick up a bounty, especially if it's by a mistake like I did in the earlier clip, I'm not just totally screwed and at a point where it's like, alright, the next hour or 2 of gameplay are going to be much more of a pain in the ass than I'd like. Speaking of my earlier blunder, the next recommendation is a really simple and easy one, and frankly something I would hope and expect Bethesda to address at some point, which is mark players' inventories. If a safe belongs to a player rather than just being in the game in isolation, just name it slightly differently. Yes, the pop-up notification that comes up should be enough most of the time, but when I open a safe and there's just a pile of pre-war money, one gun, one piece of armor, maybe a little ammo, that looks like any other safe that's in the game, and I'm more inclined to think that, oh, they're just telling me about some other inventory stash that's nearby. So those first few suggestions I think are very reasonable and realistic that Bethesda could implement them. These last two are a bit more of a reach for sure, and I wouldn't get your hopes up too high, but I think implementing them would be great for the health of the game and for the sanity of the community. The first, and probably more realistic of the two, is changing the penalty for death. Right now, you just lose all of your junk. The problem with that is once you've died once, especially if it's to a guy you're hunting down, as I said earlier, you've got nothing to lose. You can keep trying again and again and again, and you've got everything to gain and nothing to lose. My suggestion is to either make it so when you die, you lose a small percentage of your caps, whether it's 5 or 10% of your total, and maybe make it so you only lose 90% of your junk to offset that. So that way, if you're hunting someone down, and they kill you, you actually have to make the decision of, oh, is trying to get him a second, a third, a fourth time really worth losing a few dozen more caps? And this is even the sort of thing where that cap penalty could only apply to if you die to another player. If you just die in the game's environment to some AI opponent, still just the normal junk penalty, no caps applied. But in PvP, especially with the very real and already occurring potential for griefing, you gotta add something, because otherwise, why not just keep hunting down the same person if they've already killed you once? And with that, the final recommendation I have, and probably, if I'm being honest, the one that's least likely to be implemented, is to make it so that if you kill someone and you take their junk, if you leave the server immediately to avoid them coming for revenge to get their stuff back, you leave it there if you haven't stayed for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes or some amount of time. Because what I've experienced multiple times already is I'll kill someone, they'll spawn back, they'll kill me, get their junk and my junk, and then switch servers or log off entirely, and then I'm left with nothing but frustration. There's gotta be something to disincentivize that action. That's exactly what happened in this last clip I was showing, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it because, as I said, I think that one's probably a long shot. With all that out of the way, let me know what you guys think. How have you thought of or experienced the wanted and bounty system? Do you like it as is? Do you agree with any of the recommendations I've made? Do you disagree? And do you have any other ideas or suggestions that I didn't bring up that you think would be really good for Bethesda to consider? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like if you found this video enjoyable, helpful, insightful, whatever. If you really feel passionate about what I'm saying, feel free to hit Bethesda up on Twitter or whatever with this video. And last but not least, subscribe for more Fallout 76 content. I will be streaming, or possibly am actively streaming, on Twitch as we speak. Link to that is in the video description. And with that out of the way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.